Welcome back. Oh, come on. That's just mean. Red camera right on the other side of a door. Straight up not kind. Anyway. Welcome back to backtracking. Today, we're going to go back to the very first area we saw in the game, the brig. And while we're there, we're going to call out the developers for cheating spectacularly at door levels. And a friendly reminder that I am skipping over green intel items, for now. The brig is surprisingly difficult to navigate. Not because it's particularly complex in layout, but just because it's quite samey and there's less cameras than it seems like there should be. In any case, I've tactically locked a door, basically just to mark it so I can see it later. It is very, very easy to get turned around in here. Also, just for good measure, there's now a guard patrolling. I don't know if ether disease in this dossier refers to a chemical dependency on diethyl ether, or is a shout out to a game, but I have my suspicions.
Arming taser.
Any Jaeger sighting? I got nothing.
Sadly for him, I have 4 tasers and 0 patience.
Target neutralized.
And now the brig is ours. All that remains is to find the door that I marked earlier. You would not believe how irritating that is. The cameras in the brig are a very weird kind of disorienting. It's not that this particular room is particularly inaccessible. There are a couple of cameras that can point at the door, and there's one inside the room that you can just jump to and use point and click navigation and have hope do the rest.
What's yours is mine.
It's just that the cameras are weirdly positioned, and it's really, really, really easy to get turned around. If you have an unreasonably good memory, you might remember the door that we're about to go through. We saw it the very first time we looked at the map in the very first episode. Then this door was locked with Omni level 5. And now it just isn't. So that's weird, isn't it? Anyway, welcome to the Prizrak Command Center. Population dwindling.
Equipping taser.
You know, I'm not even mad. That man just dropped a gas grenade right at his own feet. So yes, guards are notably immune to the effects of their own gas grenades. On the other hand, so are we. We can pull the exact same bullshit on them with our sleeping minds, even if we're standing right next to them. Anyway, hilarious as that was, it is now time to exact revenge.
I'll hold on to this.
Man, the one time I actually wanted pepper spray. Oh well. Take 2, in which we do this properly. There are a couple of red cameras in here, but they're all upstairs and very far out of our area of concern. There are also a lot of posters in here. This one doesn't seem to have done anybody much good though. As you can plainly tell every time we read an email, we obviously know every single password in here. Although knowing how these guys are, that password is probably just password. Knowing this guy's attitude to gas grenades, I don't think a disorderly conduct charge is very much of a surprise. Well, whatever. He's got his back to us, and we have a full battery.
Let's see what he's carrying. Got it.
Alright, gas this.
Over there.
Target neutralized.
He was reaching for a pocket. We all saw it. I find the whole loyalist recruitment drive thing kind of weird, really. I don't know. It just seems to me like a faction called the Loyalists would find you. I don't know. One thing I do know is that somebody down here is a graphic designer, and they're just having a ball. All these tutorial posters, they're just like really neat. I like them. They're like good. Note the door with the lasers and the conspicuous power switch. It's kind of important. It's not that important, it's just kind of important. You might be able to infer, based on how far we've backtracked and the fact that the place is carpeted in tutorial posters that finally acknowledge the red cameras, that this is where we'll emerge if we pick Murray's path, which we'll be seeing more of in the next video. You may also have noticed the large circular plaques on the wall. They each bear the Latin inscription, Corvus Oculum Corvi non eruit, which I am assured means crow will not pluck out the eye of another crow. Very meaningful. Our final destination in this backtrack session is of course the elevated corner office flanked by 2 red cameras. Welcome to Derringer's office. Once again, we didn't need to actually walk Hope up here, I just felt like it.
Here we go.
You can do it in 4.
I can do it in 5.
I think you can do it in 4. I believe in you, Quinn.
Here goes nothing. Oh, cold, cold!
Run, run, run! Now jump to the bed! Ugh. Who controls the thermostat in Metamorphosis?
Who do you think? It's like this everywhere.
Not everywhere.
When I was in the service,
The military?
TSA,
One of the people at the airport.
world's busiest airport. We used to keep the interrogation rooms ice cold. Colder than here.
At the airport?
Suspect would come in, take a seat, and under a minute they'd be shaking like a dog razor blades.
What?
Keep 'em edgy.
But they're not criminals. They're just regular people on holiday.
I mean, some of them done some stuff.
Like what? Like mixed up their shampoo with their conditioner?
Maddie, come back to bed.
You used to with people.
My job.
You used to with people.
Where's all this coming from? I'm sorry, I wasn't a Green Beret, but you know, work I did on the outside was important. Where you going?
Back upstairs. To sleep. I'm not much in the mood for anything else now. Bloody airport.
World's busiest airport.
And now we know why the Prizrak love the TSA so much. This explains so much about Derringer. Also, I infer, based on Derringer being surprised at this sudden outburst of conscience, that this conversation happened quite recently. Also of note in this room, a level 5 lockbox.
Can you open this box?
No, we cannot. Not in this continuity anyway. And with that, our backtracking is complete. All we need to do now is, well, unbacktrack. The whole way from the command center, through the brig, through the power plant, and through Intel, back to the atrium. This endeavour is, of course, made significantly less arduous by the fact that we have indiscriminately tased and gas-mined our way through the entire patrolling Prizrak population. This one man circling Intel and the one lady in the power plant are literally the only people still conscious. Zager would be proud, I think. Maybe he'd be disappointed we didn't just murder them. I don't know. Never can tell with that guy. Anyway, with our backtracking complete, we are now free to proceed to Terminus, guilt-free. Given all the framing around it, you might be forgiven for thinking that this elevator is a point of no return. It isn't. In fact, there's still one last collectible up there.
Our boys are about to advance on Terminus. Hold on to your hoodies.
Well, that sounded like it went about as well as could be hoped. This is the episode 3 area, but pretty much all of it is blocked off to us now. All we can do is head to Terminus, through this newly unlocked and very convenient door. It leads to the last confinement room in the game. And in that room can be found the last book.
What's yours is mine.
There's also a storage locker in here, and I really did, unironically hope, that there will be one last redundant pepper spray inside. But it's just empty.
Welcome to my domain.
One last trip to the data broker cements our status as pointlessly rich.
What would you like? Sorry to see you go.
Well, let's go admire our handiwork, I guess. This new shortcut spits us out right in the room where we finished episode 3. You can still see the vent and everything. It's still open, but we can't go through it. Also, if you really want, you can still scan the cameras downstairs and go and look around down here. There's no point because you can't scan the posters anymore, but, you know, it's there if you want to look at it.
Where are we at?
Oh good, you're back.
Yes, well. Oh my god, Daniel, don't parade the girl through here. She doesn't need to see this.
Sorry, but this is a war, and that right there is a battlefield.
Hope, go to the service elevator. Do not look at that.
So yeah, Sega got his wish. These guys are dead. Notably, none of our rebel squad died, which honestly I wasn't expecting. It seemed like it would have been a much more Sega-y ending, to have everybody wind up dead, and then him on the radio being, well, we got to Terminus, it's all good, right? But no, some people get to survive. Also, I have no idea who this guy is. So yeah, go Sega, staging an armed rebellion using 3D printed single-shot pistols. And in one last flagrant lie from the devs, this door is marked as being locked level 5. But we can just hack it. Sure, why not?
ain't a figure of speech, kid. It's a long way down.
What are we doing up here?
This panel controls the cooling system for Terminus.
Well, this is the point of no return. Well, actually, technically the point of no return was when we got on the elevator coming up here, but this just seemed like a more fitting place to leave things off. So here we go. One last media roundup. Video games are no stranger to war is hell narratives, but I'm honestly surprised that so few games take the approach that this War of Mine does. Like many games, it puts you in charge of a band of, well, complete strangers really, whose home suddenly becomes ravaged by the horrors of war. But rather than being implausibly capable soldiers who join the effort and vanquish the evil whoever, our heroes are just some civilians who happen to be in the wrong city at the wrong time and who have no real interest in the war beyond surviving until it manages to end itself via means who cares. It isn't a blindingly novel narrative concept, but it's one that I wish that more games would acknowledge, that there's more to war than simply the aggressors. I don't just love the Swapper because it's a mind-bending, brilliantly crafted puzzle game that excels at making me feel like a complete moron. I also love the Swapper because it's one of the most proudly, nakedly philosophical games that I've ever played. Players will board a ship called Theseus and engage with characters named Dennett and Chalmers about topics like mind-body duality, personal identity, and the hard problem of consciousness. Players will also communicate psychically with sentient rocks who have no sensory perceptions but are capable of articulating thoughts. One of them uses the word noumena in a sentence. The ship has a metaphysics wing. God, I love this game. And I hate metaphysics. All that stuff is great. But the reason the Swapper is a great game is because its puzzle content and its philosophy content engage with each other. The result is a resonant experience that will haunt you long after the credits roll, and which also sits tightly between Soma and Nier Automata on the existential dread scale.
Media revolution is a tidal wave of morass. It drowns and buries in one stroke. Schmidt and Cohen are right. The revolution will be podcast. We can learn from leaders who came before. Print upended control based on speech, and the cassette tape undercut state control of broadcast messaging. Tame the medium. Tame the revolution.
I wonder what would happen if Treglazov ever discovered the social media recommendation algorithm. Prizrak react as Treglazov destroys digital rights activists. Can't be less effective than recruiting from the TSA.
The master switch. I am hardly surprised this doggerel optimism leached past his publisher. People love populist hope. Wu valorizes Vint Cerf and his ilk as knights against a foul king's grasp. They instead steer them away from the good king's embrace. Wu and woe, variant vowels, but no difference in meaning.
The Master Switch posits that technology and culture are destructive to openness, and tend naturally towards encouraging monopolies. I'm not sure I understand Treglazov's objection to that. It is true that the author ultimately frames this as a bad thing, and possibly Treglazov just objects to that. Maybe he's just gotten bored of his standard "this bad thing is actually good" objection. Or maybe he really just wanted to use that woo-woe pun. Anyway, that's the war game, folks. 100% completion. You know, cameras aside. We have collected every single game, book, cassette, intel, compute. Hang on a minute. Every single item. Definitely on the first attempt, without any do-overs or any backtracking. Next time, before we do the ending, we're going to branch into an alternate continuity, and see what would have happened if we'd sided with Mireille instead.